There are places on the planet where a narrow stretch of water carries decades of history, competing national ambitions, and the weight of global power. The Taiwan Strait is one of them. Here, every diplomatic gesture, every military drill, and every economic signal can shift the balance of power in Asia and influence markets around the world. Understanding why this maritime corridor has become one of the most sensitive points of the 21st century does not require alarmism, only clarity about its actors, its past, and what is truly at stake. Today, the Taiwan Strait sits at the center of rising tension between China and the United States. Beijing has increased military flights around the island, expanded naval patrols, and reiterated that unification with Taiwan remains a core national objective. Taiwan, meanwhile, continues strengthening its democratic institutions, modernizing its defense strategy, and deepening ties with partners in Asia, Europe, and North America. Washington maintains what it calls strategic ambiguity, acknowledging Beijing's position while supplying Taiwan with defensive capabilities and emphasizing that any change in the status quo must occur peacefully. Around this narrow body of water, commercial routes, high-tech supply chains, and political identities converge, creating a fragile equilibrium watched closely by governments and markets alike. The story of the Taiwan Strait began in the late 1940s, when the Chinese Civil War reshaped East Asia. After losing to communist forces, the nationalist government retreated to Taiwan, establishing a separate political system that evolved into a vibrant democracy. Since then, the mainland and the island have existed under two governments, each claiming historical legitimacy, leaving a division that never formally ended. During the Cold War, the Strait became a front line of ideological competition. The United States positioned itself as Taiwan's security partner, while Beijing sought to consolidate its influence and reintegrate what it considered a historic part of its territory. Periodic crises in the 1950s and 1990s showed how quickly the region could destabilize. By the early 2000s, economic links between both sides expanded. Trade grew, travel increased, and cross-strait dialogue reduced immediate risks, though the political divide remained unresolved. As China's global influence surged and Taiwan's democratic identity solidified, the gap between both visions widened once again. China views Taiwan as central to its national project. It seeks political unification, reduced foreign involvement in the Strait, and recognition of its influence in the region. Its main concern is that Taiwan could move toward formal independence with international support. China holds significant economic leverage, but faces limits, as escalation could disrupt trade, energy imports, and its long-term development goals. Taiwan aims to preserve its self-governance, protect its democratic institutions, and maintain international space. Its greatest fear is losing autonomy through coercion. The island has technological advantages, particularly in semiconductor manufacturing, yet faces demographic pressures and relies on external partners for security. The United States seeks stability, open sea lanes, and a balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. It aims to deter unilateral changes to the status quo while avoiding direct confrontation. Its limits stem from domestic priorities, other alliance commitments, and the risks of miscalculation in a complex region. Japan and South Korea depend on secure maritime routes through the Strait. Tokyo is increasingly vocal about regional stability, while Seoul balances economic ties with Beijing and security ties with Washington. Their involvement in any crisis would be shaped by geography, alliances, and domestic politics. Multinational corporations also have a stake in the Strait. They rely on its waters for shipping and on Taiwan for critical technologies. Their central interests are supply chain stability and predictable trade conditions. While they possess economic influence, they have little control over political decisions. The Taiwan Strait is not only a geopolitical fault line, it is a strategic corridor with global implications. Its waters link Northeast Asia with Southeast Asia, making it vital for commercial shipping. A significant share of global container trade passes nearby, connecting economies like Japan, South Korea, and China, with markets in Europe and the United States. The island itself hosts one of the world's most advanced semiconductor sectors. Taiwan's chips power smartphones, electric vehicles, data centers, and advanced defense systems. Any prolonged disruption would reverberate across global supply chains. Geographically, Taiwan sits at the center of the first island chain, a line of territories stretching from Japan to Southeast Asia. This configuration shapes military planning for both China and the United States, serving as a strategic barrier, logistical link, and platform for regional influence. Energy flows also move through surrounding waters. Shipments of oil and liquefied natural gas to South Korea, Japan, and China rely on these routes, making energy security vulnerable to instability in the strait. Together, geography, technology, trade, and identity make this narrow stretch of water uniquely consequential. The future of the Taiwan Strait could follow several distinct paths. One likely outcome is prolonged tension without major escalation. In this scenario, military signaling continues, diplomacy remains cautious, and political competition persists, while all sides avoid actions that could spark an uncontrollable crisis. This delicate balance relies on steady communication and a shared interest in economic stability. Another possibility is negotiated de-escalation. Under the right conditions, talks could resume, focusing on confidence-building measures, trade facilitation, or crisis management mechanisms. While difficult, such efforts could reduce risks and establish more predictable channels. Their success would depend on domestic support in Beijing and Taipei, as well as constructive engagement from regional partners. A third path involves increased pressure and limited confrontations. Economic restrictions, maritime interceptions, or cyber operations could be used to influence political decisions without crossing clear thresholds. This approach would test alliances in the region and introduce new uncertainties into global markets. Some developments may lead to greater international involvement. Expanded regional cooperation, diplomatic initiatives, or shifts in trade policy could broaden the issue beyond bilateral dynamics. This trajectory would be shaped by global economic conditions and the strategic priorities of major powers. Across all these possibilities, the evolution of the strait will depend on economic resilience, leadership decisions, technological competition, and the effectiveness of diplomatic channels. The Taiwan Strait is more than a narrow body of water. It is a crossroads of power, identity, and strategy, a place where geography shapes politics and where decisions made in distant capitals echo across oceans. In international affairs, nothing is predetermined, but recognizing the forces that converge here reveals the deeper patterns shaping the century. In places like the Taiwan Strait, clarity is not just useful, it is essential.